As we conclude our journey through the fundamentals of C# programming, it's important to reflect on the critical concepts we've covered. This lesson aims to summarize the major topics and skills you have acquired, providing a solid foundation for future programming endeavors. Don't worry if this feels new at first. This section covers understanding variables and data types. One of the first topics we explored was how to declare and use variables in C#. Variables are fundamental building blocks of programming, allowing you to store and manipulate data. In C#, every variable has a data type which defines the data it can hold. First, int represents integer values. Also, double represents floating point numbers. Also, string represents sequences of characters. Finally, bool represents true or false values. Here's an example of declaring variables with different data types. I'll let you read the examples on screen rather than reading every line aloud. Let's move on to control flow with conditional statements. Conditional statements allow you to execute different blocks of code based on certain conditions. In C#, the most common conditional statements are if, else, and else. These statements help create dynamic and responsive applications. Here's a simple example using an if statement. See the example. On this slide, pause if you want to study the details. This section covers loops for repetitive tasks. Loops allow you to execute a block of code multiple times without repeating yourself. In C#, the most common loops are for, while, and for each. Using loops effectively can significantly reduce the amount of code you write. For example, a for loop can be used to iterate through a list of numbers. The samples on screen walk through this step. Take a moment to read through them. Now, methods for code reusability. Methods are a way to encapsulate code that performs a specific task. They promote reusability and organization within your code. You can define methods with parameters and return types to create versatile functions. Here's an example of a method that calculates the square of a number. I'll let you read the examples on screen rather than reading every line aloud. Next, object-oriented programming basics. Understanding object-oriented programming (OOP) concepts is vital for developing robust applications. C# is an object-oriented language, which means it uses objects to represent real-world entities. First, classes, blueprints for creating objects. Also, objects, instances of classes. Also, inheritance, mechanism to create new classes from existing ones. Finally, encapsulation, restricting access to certain parts of an object. This is a simple class definition, the class shown on screen and how its members are organized. In this course, you have learned about variables, control flow, loops, methods, and the basics of object-oriented programming. These concepts form the backbone of C# programming and are essential for developing real-world applications. Alright, your turn. Give this a try. First, create a program that asks the user for their age and prints whether they're an adult or a minor. Also, write a method that accepts a list of integers and returns the sum of those integers. Also, design a class for a book with properties like title, author, and a method to display book details. Finally, implement a loop that prints the first 10 Fibonacci numbers. As you continue your programming journey, remember that practice is key. Use the skills you've acquired in this course to explore new projects and deepen your understanding of C#.